Welcome once again to my YouTube channel. My name is Kano Chinedu Praise. Maganda umaga, maganda hapon, maganda gabi. Kumusta? From which part of the world you're watching from? How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are okay. I hope you guys are staying safe. And I'm also wishing you guys a very happy weekend. As you can see, I'm wearing a very thick sweater because I don't know. I mean, for like days now, I mean, the climate has been very cold, and it's very unusual here in the Philippines because at this particular time it's kind of getting very hot. But I'm just very surprised that because now it's been very cold as hell. So I mean, like I didn't even switch on my air condition, or maybe I didn't use any fan because I mean it was quite very cold. Actually, in my previous video, I got some negative comments. I actually want to apologize. It's not like I was trying to paint Philippine in a very different way or in a bad way. No, I was just trying to give my opinion, just how some of the Filipinos see some certain foreigners. So I didn't really mean to upset or make some Filipino feel bad, or maybe make someone feel bad, or maybe trying to make the Philippines look like a very bad country. No, and I still say the Philippines is quite an awesome country. So it's just exactly what I've actually noticed, among some Filipino people. Actually, this video is very similar to one of my previous topic which I discussed in my previous video. Actually, in the previous video, I was talking about what I think about the Filipino people. But in this video, I'm going to be discussing about what I really think about the Filipino culture in terms of their place, food, culture, tradition, and things like that. So I want you guys to stay tuned and please enjoy this video. But if you're new to this YouTube channel, or probably you have been watching my YouTube video for a very long time and you forgot to subscribe, please consider subscribing and turn on your notification bell so that you can be able to get future video even as I upload. And also don't forget to smash the like button, and finally don't forget to comment on what you really think about this video. So without no further ado, let's get back to the video. Actually, if I were trying to do a comparison between my country and Philippines, I would say there is no much differences between my country and Philippines in terms of their culture and tradition. But in the Philippines, they are very traditional. They respect their culture. They're very religious people, same as my own country also. But in every country, that has a culture and tradition, there must be something very unique or different, about that country's tradition and the other countries' tradition. Actually, if I were to put the Filipino culture in words, I would say the Philippines has a very awesome, rich culture and tradition. That is why you see the Philippines, attract so many tourists from all walks of life into the Philippines, because foreigners actually love the Filipino culture. They love the tradition, and they just love everything about the Philippines. Number one, the Filipino culture gives the Filipino people an avenue to learn about other people's or other countries' culture, because not every country will actually welcome your own tradition or would want to learn about your own country's culture. But here in the Philippines, it's quite very different. Like the Filipinos are very inquisitive people. They really want to learn about people's culture, but you won't say they want to learn if the culture doesn't welcome other people's culture. Because if you check about like North Korea, if you check China, if you check some other countries, they find it very difficult for them to really welcome other people's tradition. But here in the Philippines, it's very different. When you come to the Philippines as a foreigner, you get to learn about your culture, and also they get to learn about your own culture. Even in music, I have so many Filipinos who are actually dating Africans from different countries. Most of them have actually mastered how to speak Pidgin English, Igbo language. Also, they've even mastered how to speak French. And also, most of them really have even mastered also to learn about our music. Like, they're very crazy about our song. Some they say they love the way the beat sound. They just that's exactly what it means. Like, the culture really gives an avenue for the Filipino to really explore and get to know about other cultures in terms of the food, music, tradition, and etc. Secondly, the Filipino culture gives an avenue for the Filipino people to help also foreigners. Because if you're a traveler, you will get to understand that not every country are very, very helpful towards foreigners. They find it very, very difficult, to help people. Like, you can't just stop. If you go, there are some countries you go to that you can't even just stop people to, ask them, please, can you show me the way? Can you take me? Where does this road lead? But I mean, here in the Philippines, it's quite a very different vibe. Like, they really want to help you. I mean, sometimes, it might not really be their own business, but they just want to, help you. They just want to really know how you're really doing, whether you're doing very, very fine, or maybe they're just very, very very conscious about foreigners in their country. Like, it's I've been in so many situations where I find it really very difficult to really talk to a Filipino, but they can actually tell when maybe you're off or maybe something is wrong. They can actually walk up to you, I try to ask you, or probably they're also very, very receptive people. Like, if maybe you lost your way, you can meet any Filipino security, a girl or boy or office worker, in as far as a Filipino, and maybe he or she knows that place. When you ask them, they have this receptive way of responding to you. That smile, that's exactly what the Filipino culture I've actually given. Because if you have been to China, or maybe if you have been to some countries that are actually ruled by some tough president, it's really very, very difficult for them to really help tourists. Even though the tourist is actually your first time coming to that place, they find it very, very hard. But here in the Philippines, it's quite a very different vibe. Like, it's really very, very interesting. When you walk up to a Filipina, probably maybe a Filipino walks up to you and try to ask you, are you lost? Are you safe? Are you free? So that we can go on a road trip, so that I can show some of the nice places around the Philippines. And number three, the Filipinos actually care about how foreigners perceive their culture. And this one is really very, very true. I've met some Filipinos. Sometimes I have some Filipino friends who have not met foreigners or haven't chatted with foreigners for the very first time. And when you now start chatting, you tell them, hey, ¿cómo está? How are you? They ask you, are you living in the Philippines, and how long have you stayed in the Philippines? The other question they're going to ask you is, how do you perceive, or how do you feel about the Filipino culture in terms of their food? And they're going to ask you, have you eaten some of the famous Filipino dishes like chicken adobo? And they're going to ask you, have you traveled to some of the islands around the Philippines? Have you been to some of the interesting places around the Philippines? And also, they would just ask you generally, what do you feel, or what do you think about the Philippines, since maybe you have stayed in the Philippines for quite a very long time. So I would say this is a very, very big yes. Like, they really want to really know exactly how you feel about their country. Number four, growth oriented outlook. Like I said previously, the Filipinos culture also permits them to learn about other people's culture. What I mean to say is this: it's like the Filipino don't just dwell on one trend. No, they are constantly upgrading. Like, any culture or any song or any fashion that just comes out, they're constantly upgrading to that trend. It's not like like I said, like other countries. Like, I've watched some documentaries on North Korea. Like, they're still very stagnant, like in terms of the dressing, their food, the same type. I mean, they're always very stagnant, like no growth. But in here in the Philippines, there's always permission to actually upgrade and get to learn about people's culture, like in terms of their fashion, in terms of their food. And they're just constantly upgrading. It's not like they're very, very stagnant. There are countries you go to, just by you looking at their whole environment, you just know that, man, these people are actually backward in terms of civilization. But in the Philippines, you come in here will know that man, this country is actually up to date with the trend, with the fashion, with the music. And generally, finally, one of the fundamental basic about the Filipino culture is family orientation. What I mean to say is these, like, the Filipinos really value their family a lot, and they can't really stay without having a conversation without their family. And they can be in situation, they can travel to any part of the world, probably maybe for working or for vacation, but you will still find them really having a constant communication with their family members. That is why the Filipinos are actually one of the texting nations of the world, because they really value themselves very, very well. Like, best friend, relative, cousin, father, children, name it, they really value that communication. Like, they can't really stay a day or two without having a normal a normal conversation with their family relatives, or with their father, or with their children, with their uncle. So if you're here in the Philippines, you dare not mess with the Filipino family, because you're really gonna see the other side of that Filipino person, which you're really dealing with. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys really learned something about the Filipino culture. But let's I go, or before I go, if you haven't subscribed, please and please consider subscribing. Turn on your notification bell so that you can be able to get future videos as I upload. And also don't forget to smash the like button, and finally don't forget to comment on what you really think about this video. So without no further ado,